What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Johnny Mac here. Just wanted to give you a heads up that if you are looking for a community that is open to discussion as far as mentorship, conservation, the wild, becoming a better person, and all of that, there is a group for you on Facebook, and it is called Soul Seekers. Soul Seekers, we are all about making ourselves a better person. We're all about making sure hunting lasts for generations to come and encouraging people to get plugged in. Whether you are someone who has something to give or someone who needs to soak it up like a sponge, this is a community for you. And I strongly encourage you that if you're on Facebook to join Soul Seekers, and if you're not on Facebook, hop on there just for that group. It is only going to be as powerful as we all make it. And so just remember that life happens for you, it doesn't happen to you, and that you can't outgive good. You can't outgive good, people. I want you to understand that, and I want you to believe it, because when we believe that and we lead with courage and we lead with intention, lives are changed, lives are transformed, just like on this podcast, transformation through primal adventure. Be blessed. Enjoy this episode. Talk soon. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Soulful Hunter Podcast. I'm your host, Johnny Mac. Through this podcast, I'm on a mission to transform lives through primal adventure and to spread my mission of mentorship as conservation. This podcast is powered by Washington Backcountry, a resource for all hunters, both new and old. To find out more about Washington Backcountry, go to wabackcountry.com or search for Washington Backcountry on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. The Soulful Hunter Podcast is also proudly presented by T&K Hunting Gear. If you haven't heard about T&K, then it's about time you do. I've been using T&K gear out in the field and on hunts and have fallen in love with their stuff. T&K is veteran-owned and 100% made in America using only American-made products. All their gear is covered under a lifetime warranty with no questions asked. If it breaks or fails, they will fix it or replace it for free. T&K is your resource for bino harnesses, bow slings, and a lot more amazing gear. For more information about T&K hunting gear, go to tnkhunting.com or search for them on Facebook and Instagram. I hope you guys enjoy this episode. Freedom on and stay soulful. The Soulful Hunter Podcast is also proudly presented by the Crazy Elk Company. Based out of the state of Washington with products made in America, they are providing solutions with gear to problems you didn't even know you had. Their tag wallet is one of those solutions, and I had the pleasure of using it on all of my hunts this last year, and it is now a mainstay in my kill kit. The tag wallet is a water-resistant zippered pouch that comes with its own reusable zip ties to safely and securely store your notch tag for quick and easy access. For more information, go to crazyelkcompany.com and use the code SOULFUL with a capital S to save 20% at checkout. Be blessed, everyone, and as always, stay soulful. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the Soulful Hunter Podcast. Today, I got an absolute awesome veteran and a return guest to the show, the one and only Jana Waller from Skullbound TV, and just an all-around wonderful, wonderful human being. And it's so incredible that she gets to share her light and her love with humanity and the world on this podcast in this episode. So we're going to dive into the soulful side of things, as it is with all of our Thursday episodes. And so, Jana, thank you so much for coming on.
Oh, I love talking with you. We seem to be two peas in a pod, as we've had a lot of deep conversations about life and perspective and paradigm. And no, I always love to talk with you. And I think that we are, brothers and sisters from other mothers, and however that goes when you're.
No, I totally agree. We are, yeah. And here it goes back to the root of everything. We're all humans. We're all connected.
Right.
Whether or not we come from what people would consider a different family tree or whatever, the genealogy, the lineage, it all comes back to the same thing, and that we are made in the image of God, and we are made with purpose and inspiration, and that we have a directive to love one another in this life. And the best way to love each other is to then first love ourselves so that we are taken care of so that we can then give to the world. So we're diving into what Jana does to nourish her own soul. Which, by the way, listeners, if you're new to this series and the concept of the soulful side, nourishing the soul looks like taking care of your mind, will, and emotions. And what do you do, especially in 2021 right now? We're recording on April Fool's Day, April 1st, 2021.
Which kind of feels like this whole last year. April Fools!
Right. I totally agree. So, Jana, let's just kick it off. How do you take care of your mind, your spirit, your heart, so that you are centered, so that you are grounded for not only yourself, for your day, and for everything that you are now putting out into the world? Because what you do, you have intention with what you're putting out. So what's the start?
Well, first off, let me say I love that you are starting from the self, right? Because as human beings, I feel like we tend to often we can easily get into a negative mind frame of blaming other people, even even the family in your own household, right? Blaming them for a bad day, or the yard's not mowed, or all the laundry piling up, or all the day, right? We tend to blame the people around us without really looking into ourselves. And I feel like that is something that comes with age. I wasn't, I love where I'm at in life, and I don't have. Let me just say for people who are not know, I have it easy because I don't have kids, and I've always said that I wasn't blessed to be able to have kids. I do have a stepson, Brennan, who is. I claim him as my own. He's the late 20s and just an amazing soul himself. But honestly, I can say this: Brennan is one of those human beings who is just so self-sufficient. He always has been, even in grade school. Like he's got a head on his shoulders. He's very common sense. Worry about him in terms of the society we live in today, like you and I have talked about. So I have it made in that I kind of only have to worry about me and my needs in terms of day to day. I live alone. Well, that's not true. I do have a roommate, Laura, but she's in the mountains most of the time. or our schedules are so crazy that we rarely are home together. And then of course, Mr. John Bear, the beautiful soul himself, he lives 8 hours away from me. So I'm actually down in Utah right now and getting to spend some time with him. But I don't live in a household with other people regularly. So there really is just me. So I think I have a lot easier time of nourishing my soul because of those things, right? It's a lot harder. Like when I have a lot of friends who are moms, and like it's a lot harder for them to find time for themselves. And it's so critical because being a good parent, being a good spouse, it means putting you first, because you're so right in that if you don't water your own garden, there's no vegetables to share, so to speak. So, but for me, I love to read. I'm not as big a reader as I used to be, but when there's times when I'm feeling negative, or I'm feeling in a rut, or I'm questioning life in general, I a book or a podcast. Lately, I have been really listening to a lot of health podcasts because, and not just, so I'm like I'm telling you, I'm into intermittent fasting lately. I only eat in a small window, but it's really amazing how when I started this process in January of wanting to change the way I eat, of how that really affects our mental health. And then that led me into all these other podcasts about toxins and how toxins in our world, and they can come from, Glade Arrow spray in your bathroom to the stuff you eat to the lotions you put on your body. And it's this rabbit hole that you can really go down. But I'm having a lot of fun investigating that lately because it is so hand in hand. Mental health and physical health go so hand in hand. So whether I'm feeling worn down physically or mentally, lately I either dive into a book or podcast. And for me, it kind of resets things, like literally every day. I'm on the road a lot, so that's easy to listen to podcasts. But right before bed, or even midday, I'll take a break and listen to a podcast that's going to nourish my mental garden. And it can be a health podcast physically, talking about, I've been into the keto thing lately, which I'm kind of getting away from actually. But it's so funny how that's so connected to mental health. It really, really is. And this whole toxin thing lately, I've been listening to a bunch of different podcasts. Last week, I listened to one that was, you and I were talking about it earlier, about the chemical glyphosate and how it's like Roundup. We all know what Roundup is for your weeds, but this glyphosate is on almost every mass producer of vegetables in this country uses it because it's cheap and it's easy to use and it's still legal, which it shouldn't be, and how it's in so many of our foods and how it affects our brain.
Yes.
And it's crazy how the gut and the brain are our sources of health, period. And but back to the mental health thing, like for me, it's literally being out in nature. That's the number one thing. And then when I am working or when I am like, okay, I need a break or I do feel myself getting down physically or mentally, I will try to learn, try to educate, try to fill my brain with healthy podcasts, whether it is on, toxins, intermittent fasting, working out, whatever it could be. I think those go so hand in hand where I didn't necessarily in my previous decades of life understand that so much. But that's why hunting, you and I have connected over hunting, and it's why you have the core base of listeners that you do is we all love to hunt. But what you have gotten into, what makes your podcast so special is that the hunting side of things, like notching a tag is just an extra. It's kind of it's the bonus. And really what nature does for me is reset my soul every single day. John and I just last night or 2 nights ago went for a walk up in the mountains. We literally can get in his truck and within 5 minutes we're at a trailhead or even just the edge of the mountain path here, kind of an hour outside of Salt Lake City, and just go walking up in the mountains. And we saw probably 30 deer. The 2 times ago we went for a hike, we saw a dozen bighorn sheep. And just watching wildlife and, whether you're along a river or a creek and you watch that river still flows, it reminds you that whatever you're going through, life still goes on. That river still flows. Those clouds still float by. And we all have to figure out a way to balance the negativity that's coming at us from a cultural perspective right now. There is so much negativity. All you have to do is hop on the internet or social media and see everything from negativity from politics to our 2A laws getting stripped from us or the attempt of our hunting 2A rights getting stripped from us. Whether it's, you watching other hunters bash other hunters where I'm like, oh my goodness, if you only knew what was going on behind the scenes to take away hunting in general. There's so much negativity and that energy can affect our souls. And we just need to find ways to decompress.
Absolutely. I just want to address a couple things right there. So you talked about like the government or certain people within the government are pushing towards removing our gun rights, and which are supposed to be, and I truly believe, and I would assume that you agree with me, inalienable. You cannot change it. We, as humans, have the right to defend ourselves against tyranny, oppression, and against any harm that is coming towards us or our family or our property.
Amen.
That is what I believe.
Yep.
With that being said, it's really interesting. In this podcast, I don't want it to be a political podcast per se, but you got to understand something, people, that when I say that you need to take care of yourself so that you can then take care of the world, it puts ownership on you, the listener, on you as an individual. Because Jana, when she gets overwhelmed, when she gets stressed, when she gets worn down by the cares of the world and anxiety builds up, does she go to government and say, these laws need to come in place to take care of me because I don't feel good in my heart, I don't feel good in my soul? No, she takes ownership of herself, so that she knows how to take care of her own being, so that the fruit that she produces is good fruit. Because it says in the Bible that we are known by the fruit that we bear, whether we bear negative fruit or good fruit. And so when it comes to like these people saying, well, you don't need an AR, it doesn't matter what we need or don't need. We have the right. And there's a difference. And that's where the line in the sand is drawn. And we can argue the fine details. And yet at the end, it doesn't matter because I have the right to take care of myself. And how we take care of ourselves needs to also not infringe upon the life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness of other people. Once again, inanimate objects do not do harm on their own. It takes a person with intent to then whatever. And intention is so important. That's why we talk about grounding our souls each and every day, is that if we are not grounded in gratitude and good intention, then we are already off the main path of where our goal. So all of you hunters out there, we have a target, we aim at a target. We're not just shooting at a big board, we're shooting at a bullseye. And the minute that you do not take ownership or you don't ground yourself in where you want to be, that small degree of being off ends up 100 yards being way off, and at 200 yards being way off, and at 5 years being extremely off. And then you're like, how did we get here?
Oh, you are you are just making me smile so huge. One of the best books I ever read, this was probably 25 years ago, was The Seat of the Soul, or maybe 20 years ago. I don't know.
It was like 4 years ago. Come on, Jana.
Time flies, people. Trust me. The Seat of the Soul by Gary Zukov. Gary Zukov, I don't agree with every single thing he says in the book. He was actually a former Green Beret, who then sort of found his life on a path of peace and forgiveness, but it's an incredible book. I think of that. It's one of those books that, like those 5 books that you read that you think of all the time. And he talks about the power of intention, and that every single decision in your life, and let me just preface, we're all human beings, right? We all make mistakes. We're not going to live every single day to perfection. We might say something we didn't mean to. We may, we make, the simple thing is we make mistakes. But I have seriously read that book, and it struck me to my core. I think of it all the time. And in big decisions, even medium-sized decisions in my life, I think all the time, what is my intention here? And whether it's signing a contract with a potential sponsor, I can honestly say to you that I have turned down a lot of money in this hunting industry because I didn't feel the intentions were right of that partner. And I didn't want to sign a contract with a company that I don't align with, yes. that I don't love how they treat their employees, that I don't love how they treat people, or the way they look at the world, or the way they look at their products, or maybe, it can go deep. But intention is so critical to people's happiness. And I'll tell you another person that I love following is Ryan Mishler. He talks all the time about ownership and about stop blaming all the people around you. And he gives great stories in his life with his wife and his kids and his past careers. But I really like following his sort of mantra, and it always is to better yourself, but look at yourself and what are your intentions in life. And when something knocks you down, okay, why is this happening for me instead of to me?
Yes, because life happens for us. It doesn't happen to us.
Exactly. Even really bad things in our lives. You and I have talked about that in the past. I mean, my life took a huge shift 2 years ago that I was not expecting. And the biggest thing that got me through it was remembering that everything happens for a reason. Why is this happening for me? And I think you and I have even talked on previous podcasts about the movie The Secret. Yeah. And it's real. It's a book too, but if you want to knock it out in an hour and a half, it's a movie. It's on Amazon. It's like $3 to rent it. Don't rent it. Buy it for $7 because you will watch it over and over and over. And at first you watch it and you kind of feel like, oh, they're going to sell me something in this. Like, buy our, I'm going to date myself here. Buy our 18 cassette tape,
Right.
Those too, 30 years ago. But like, they're not selling you anything. It's really how the world works, that energy you put out there comes back at you. And to really at the core of everything, what is your intention? What is your intention in this decision? What is your intention in this partnership with someone, whether it's business or a relationship? What is your true intention? And is it to better yourself and those around you? It's so powerful.
Yes, and I want to add to that because listeners, if you listen to chapter 3 of the Soulful series I just did with Tim Douglas of the Inspired Way podcast, chapter 3 was all about margin and slowing down. And one of the biggest things is if we do not create margin in our lives from our scheduling and the busyness and the buzz of society, we also what reducing that margin or eliminating that margin does is it eliminates our ability to then focus, reflect, and ground ourselves with intention before we move into something. For example, like I was teaching a class all the way up until this time in which I'm recording this podcast. I'm like, oh man, well, I need to make my kid lunch and I need to do this and I need to do this, but schedule yourself. And not only schedule yourself time to then breathe, to take a breath, to slow down, to get margin. We wear ourselves out, that whole term of burning the candles at both ends. It starts in just our everyday life, and it's so interesting and paramount for a healthy life. At the end of the day, hunting is just a conduit for us to become a better person. That's why it's transforming lives through primal adventure. It's a journey, it's not a destination. And so, as I share this with all of you, and as Jana and I are talking, this is an interaction between us. It's not us talking down to you from like some pulpit or pedestal. Like, we're here. And for those of you who have not joined the Soul Seekers Facebook group, there's something that I wrote on there and I want to share with everyone. It says, as much as people like to think that we are islands, we are all connected by the water that touches our shores. The ripple effect is real, and every action or inaction impacts not just us, but everyone or island. Our thoughts become our words become our reality in which we live, and how we continue to speak life and create in each moment is how you end up finding fulfillment, purpose, and passion in life. And so it starts with, once again, where are you grounded? Because a tree is not going to withstand a storm if it doesn't have good, strong roots. A tree is also not going to produce the fruit that it needs if it's not grounded into a place of nourishment and a place that allows abundance to happen. And so it starts in here. And when I say in here, I'm pointing at my own heart. If you don't take a look at each day and be like, I want to make myself a better person today, then what is the point? If you don't, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. It's so true. It does start within yourself. And you also, I believe, have to give yourself grace for when you make mistakes. But you also and a lot of self-love. Like, I think women especially can get really down on themselves from a perspective of either physically as they age or, oh, they're not doing enough because they're pulled in so many different directions with all the roles that they have in life with their jobs and their kids. The guys do too. I don't mean to, I just feel like moms have a lot of pressure on them when I talk with my mom friends. But it's so important to start with the self, but then it's so important, I feel, to surround yourself with people who are of the same mindset, who are going to lift you up, who are going, like iron sharpens iron, right? And who are going to make you stronger, and who, I don't know about you, but I've drifted away from some of my high school friends, partly because our common interests aren't really there, but also I feel like that don't necessarily hear me, meaning my perspective, whether when we're sitting around and we're talking about politics or gun rights or things that are like, and why politics are so important to me is because right now what I love is being threatened. Like, gone are the days of like, my goodness, all I have to do is put on social media to see what it's just a war going on back and forth. And I've always prided myself. I have a lot of friends who are from all walks of life, all sides of the rainbow and the spectrum, or however you want to put it. but I don't surround myself now, the older I've gotten, with people who don't respect each other and who aren't out trying to better one another. And I love my friends who I can have great disagreements with, but you know that underlying message of growth and self-love is there, and that they want the best for you. And there's it's what's very common in the hunting industry is a perspective of, oh, must be nice when anyone gets a big deer, gets a big bull, or gets another sponsor or whatever. And it doesn't mean, I don't mean the hunting industry as a whole working. I mean hunting in general. There can be a lot of haters out there who have a really negative attitude or who don't want what's best for you. And whether it's on social media or your close friends, I don't surround myself with anyone who doesn't seriously want the best for themselves and for me. And vice versa. Like, I try so hard to lift my friends up and to root them on and to help out in any way I can, because I know that the law of attraction works as this. If I put good intention out there and I try to help people as much as I can, and I try to be a really good person, and I try to show my love for the outdoors, all that just comes right back at me. It truly does. That's how life works. It's physics. And
Yeah,
I believe in that.
totally. People consider the concept like energy as like this woo-woo topic. Like, oh, I don't know, that sounds pretty weird. And so often people only, and I'm extremely generalizing here. So if you are not this person, awesome, good for you. But for the most part, my experience of humanity is that they don't have vision. And they don't have vision also because they don't reflect. Because inward reflection leads to outward correction. And so if we why I always talk about identifying what you want is so important, because it also identifies what you don't want. And if you don't want something, then what's the opposite of it? If I want love for the world and for myself and for humanity, then I can't be living in fear, because fear doesn't encourage and allow room for love to expand. So but at the same time, not but, because I want to acknowledge what I said before, and at the same time, going back to what you said earlier about iron sharpens iron. Today, so many people do not hold their own knowledge, and therefore they don't feel comfortable having discussions. Call it arguments, call it disagreements, call it whatever. You have two opposing sides, and no one is willing to still love each other through the argument, through the discussion. They rather be like middle finger in the air, screw you guys, I'm out, or I'm never talking to this person. And at the end of the day, it is very good to identify the people who are healthy for you and unhealthy. And at the same time, you need to also be healthy for others. And so with that comes is you, once again, turning your eyes in towards yourself and be like, okay, what do I know and what do I not know? What do I need to work on so that then I have more of a foundation? I like to refer to the Bible a lot, and whether or not you consider yourself a Christian, want to be a Christian, or whatever, I'm not pushing religion on you. What I'm pushing on is wisdom. And it says, do not build your house upon sand, because if your foundation is not strong, you're not going to be able to withstand the storms. And so we need to always have a good foundation. And so once again, whether it's hunting foundation, knowledge foundation, love foundation, whatever it is that you are doing in your world, in your existence, where's your foundation? Because your foundation is also going to set the direction in which you go.
Oh, amen. I so believe in that. And I really also believe that, like, I've had these incredible talks with my girlfriends lately, and I'm so lucky because I have friends who we know each other's insides and outs. We know from our childhood traumas to our goals, our dreams, our failures, and we still absolutely love one another. So I feel so lucky and blessed that I literally have a handful of girlfriends who we are 100% authentic with one another. And we've been talking a lot lately about stuff, especially with a couple of them that I'm thinking of, back to their childhoods. And I think it's so critical and important for people, men and women, to have people in their lives, and it can be a therapist. It could be, I noticed a lot of therapists are Zoom therapists nowadays because of COVID. And I just saw, it's funny, I saw my dermatologist posting about this gal out of Missoula, who is a therapist and does these Zoom energy calls. And it does sound fluffy and stuff, but really what she does is talk you through stuff and get you um, putting stuff out there, right? Saying stuff out loud about your goals and your dreams and your intentions and where you failed in life and why did this happen to me? Why, and it can go all the way. I just think my point being, I think it's so important when we're working on ourselves to try to be as authentic as we humanly can. And we're really just all products of our childhoods and the people that we're surrounded with, right? And until we dive into why we think the way we think, why we do stuff, and like it all goes back to intention. And a lot of people might not even really consciously think about their intentions of doing things in their life. And with whether it's with their marriages or their jobs or their kids, the relationship with their kids, everything that has an intention behind it. And I have a lot of friends who went through a lot of childhood trauma, like severe childhood trauma. And it is only through talking through those kind of things where they can then understand why they have these thinking patterns the way they do. And a lot of the patterns that come out of that are self-doubt and lack of confidence, lack of trust with other people. And so I think that's important in the discussion that we're having right now is for men and women to think back to those kind of moments that might have really shaped you and to be able to talk them out with someone who can let you know that there should be no blame on your part. You don't have to own it and move on, but learn from it and learn why you're making the decisions you are in life and the thought patterns that you
So spot on. And you got me all fired up because,
have.
man, Jana, this is why I love having you on this podcast. And I love having you in my circle because we are the sum of the people that we surround ourselves with. And I thank you so much for opening up and sharing. I just got done having this conversation with my brother this week. And by the way, I was raised in a household that was, as you've heard in me share before, or maybe you haven't, was a completely confusing household. My mom left my dad, let's see, 4.5 years ago, just straight disappeared, went into hiding from my dad. And I'm sharing this on a podcast that I don't typically, it's really weird for me to like open up and talk about this. My household, I don't know what to trust. I also have no memory of my childhood, like completely blank. I don't have anything. Now, I have specific like moments, but I can't really tell you. I do have one memory, and that's what I always wanted to run away from my home. And that was before I was in kindergarten. I remember one moment in time being like, I got to get out of here, which
Okay.
is really, really interesting. My brother, talking to him and bringing him into this conversation, is he actually gave a TED Talk
Oh, really?
about overcoming child abuse.
Hmm.
And and he was talking to me. He's like, the majority of, and if not all humanity, all their issues stem from the time they're 0 to 6 years old.
A lot of them, yeah, I agree with that.
I don't have data on that or numbers to back it
Yeah,
up, but if we go with the concept of if your foundation is not on a platform that is strong, or you're not rooted in a place of love that encourages growth and nourishes you and helps you produce the fruit that are also, beneficial for yourself and the world, then it makes sense that you go back to the 0 to 6 years old and you're like, oh, well, your foundation is shaky. Your
yeah,
foundation is not a healthy foundation. And so often it hurts to go back.
it does. It's painful. That kind of work, it can be incredibly painful. I can say that it's weird. My 34 years, and I literally grew up in what I would call a Leave It to Beaver household. But then when my dad was, what, 50 or a little after 50, he wanted a divorce, and it was really hard. But I don't have childhood trauma, but I can tell you that of my core best friends have had the most severe childhood trauma there is. And they have persevered and worked, and it's still a work in progress, but they're incredible human beings that I have major respect for, and it's because they've done the work what you're talking about, and they're not victims, right? They would never classify themselves as victims. They are incredibly deep, loving, passionate, beautiful people that have had to get through trauma, but it's taken a lot of work, and what it takes a lot of work usually to, whether it's a therapist, whether it's a best friend they can talk to, but working through these things. And luckily, we do live in a very high tech age where there are so many wonderful books and podcasts out there to listen to get knowledge from. A lot of people may find that it's shameful to, see a therapist or a psychiatrist. There's a lot of that there shouldn't be.
Yeah, can I just talk about that for a second? Is
Yeah,
that within society, I don't know, I really don't know where it stems from, where it's considered taboo to say I go see counseling, or I seek counsel, or call it counseling, therapy, psychiatry, whatever you want to label it, because here we are with in modern society, we're so concerned with labels.
right.
At the end of the day, look at it like this. Are you worth investing in? Are you as a human being worth investing in?
Right.
If you're not worth investing in, then that's sad, because that's a mindset of how you view yourself. And this is why we say love yourself before you can love others. And if you are worth investing in, then invest in yourself. Period.
Oh, so true. And people who have maybe never gone through any kind of therapy, might not understand how incredibly healing it is to talk to somebody who's a stranger, who doesn't judge, who's heard it all before, right? I mean, I have friends who are psychiatrists, and I actually worked for a psychiatrist right out of college for a little while, and we used to have the best conversations after work. Like, but they don't judge. They've heard it all before, and and to be able to go in and whether it's a psychiatrist or a therapist or a best friend, to verbalize things is so helpful and meaningful. And you know as we go through this crazy time we are with COVID, there's been a lot of light that has been shined on mental health,
Yes.
and how even people who don't feel value because they can't go to their jobs. The suicide rate is off the charts right now. And I think a lot of that has to do with the lack of being able to communicate with people, with the lack of being able to even, see people face to face or feel value in your job, or, but I just think therapy, however you want to call it, whatever kind you want to, whether it is like I just said, whether it's a group of people getting on a, I mean, my gosh, my mom belongs to a book club, and book club's like therapy for her. All her friends just get together and chat and talk, and and really get into some deep conversations. And I think it's a beautiful thing. Circling back around to you talking about the self, all of those components, whether it's going out in nature, reading a good book, a self-help book, listening to a good podcast, all of that is it's constant, right? That it's a constant quest for to make us feel the most healthy physically, the most healthy mentally, spiritually, and we can't be the best people we can be for other people until we take care of ourselves.
Oh, amen. Going back to the counseling thing, there's a saying that says there's safety in the multitude of counselors. Meaning that if you're not feeling safe in your life, or if you're feeling unsafe because of dynamics that are taking place and what's going on around you in the storm of life, that when you talk about things with people and drop the judgment, drop the judgment of yourself, drop the thought of judgment of other people to you, are you worth saving? Are you, like the airlines say, going to put on the oxygen mask on yourself before you put it on somebody else?
Yeah.
I mean, why do they say that? And so I love this conversation. Janet, you are so wise. Y-
Well, there's probably a few people in this world that would disagree with that.
well, that's
Well,
okay. We can have
I,
differing opinions.
yeah, well, I really appreciate that. But I am blessed to live my dream job, to live, in what I call, the best country in the world. I'm blessed beyond belief. I have so much gratitude. We could do, by the way, a whole podcast. You and I talked about this the other day about gratitude, and that also being such a key of what is your intention, and having gratitude through everything, even the bad times. Like grateful, because quite frankly, the bad times in my life um, are the ones that have shaped me the most. They
Yeah.
really are, and I have gratitude for that. I don't even have I don't even have anger or resentment towards any of the bad things in my life. I have major gratitude. They have led me to other incredible opportunities and incredible people.
Yeah.
And but yeah, I think I love that you're dedicating this part of the podcast to individual growth, and these kind of conversations are so important. And I'm not wise, I'm just lucky to surround myself with people like you who are on the same journey I am.
I love it. I do want to acknowledge this because this is something that's really been eating at my own soul. And we talked about ownership at the beginning of this podcast, and we talked about therapy and counseling and sharing with other people. And you got done saying that people are afraid to talk to others. And this is one of the issues that I have with wearing a mask in society is when you walk into a public place nowadays, no one wants to look at anyone. It's like head down, eyes down, no acknowledgement of humanity anymore. And that mask is a literal physical representation of like, okay, I'm not going to talk to anyone. I'm creating a barrier between you and me and society. And it goes back to ownership. Is like, are you living in fear? Are you living in love? Are you owning what you need to do to take care of yourself? Because you can take care of yourself and be safe. You can take care of yourself and love other people. You can take care of yourself, love other people, be safe, and not bend a knee to life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness, and what it means for you to be a human being. And I just want to address that because in my heart of hearts, I'm having such a difficult time. And this goes back to life just being life is meant to be confusing as of right now, it seems like, and confusion is not pure. Confusion is not healthy. Confusion doesn't bring positive fruit. And so it's time to like identify, ground ourselves, solidify us in our knowledge and in our belief and in who we are so that life is no longer confusing.
Yeah, I I I agree with you. I do. I've seen that myself, just definitely in this last year of the disconnect from people. And I understand the health reasons and all the whys of the masking and all that. I get that, but you're right. It doesn't take a little bit, but a little bit of effort to go out of the way to say hi to people, whether you got the mask on or not. To start up a conversation with how's your day today. With it doesn't take a whole lot to really consciously think about that, and to start making reconnections with people, and helping when you can, and making good conversation. Maybe every night you and your spouse decide to make one phone call to somebody to just check in.
Yeah.
Hi, it's Johnny, just saying hi, wondering how you're doing, haven't talked to you for a few months, or whatever that may be. And that whole idea is very strong within the veteran community, of veterans checking in on each other because of the incredibly high suicide rate. I think we in general as human beings can start doing that better, especially with this lack of connection because of the closings of everything. And yeah, things are starting to open up again, but still the masks, like you say. And but I think we do need to get back to that human connection. It's also the world we live in right now, right? The cell phone world. I don't know about you, but you look around in a restaurant and half the people are down on their phone. Yeah. Yeah, and it's so funny. John and I are kind of having fun looking for just a little fishing boat, and we were both on our phones in the restaurant. Both he was looking on Facebook Marketplace, and I was looking on KSL, and it was really funny. I look around, I'm like, John, we're that couple we make fun of all the time. Both on our phones, but we are still communicating. But I was just making light of that. But it is true. People are on their phones all the time, and that we are having that lack of humanity and connection that we need to even as I'm glad you sparked that. Even as me, I'm going to make an effort to make conversation with people more than maybe I would have in recent months.
Yeah. And don't be afraid to.
Yeah,
Don't be afraid. And once again, it goes back to the fear, right?
yeah. Sometimes people just need a little conversation of, a little conversation or a little compliment, or you really do never know what somebody else is going through. But if you have the intention of being friendly and being nice and sweet, trust me when I say that energy comes right back at you.
Oh, what you put out into the world is gonna return. It's a law, right?
Yeah,
It,
it is
it, it
the law of attraction. It's
yeah.
real.
So,
And that goes on the flip side too. You're going to be crabby and negative to somebody. Guess what you're going to get?
yeah, and in full circle, intention goes
Yep.
back to intention. What
Yep.
what do you want to put out into the world? What do you want to get out of the world? What do you want to do for yourself? Ladies and
Yep.
gentlemen, thank you so much for tuning in to this episode. Jana, thank you so much. You are an inspiration. You are a bright light in this world, and continue to shine. Continue
Well,
to shine. Put it out there.
you too, my brother. I really appreciate that. I always love our conversations, and I'm already looking forward to the next one.
Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, if you have not heard of Jana Waller or Carbon TV, first off, I'm sad to say that I think you might be living under a rock. So you need to go check out Jana Waller and all the content she's putting out on Carbon TV, and with her show Skullbound, which is incredible. It's free. Fire Stick, Google Play, download it on your phone. It's a great way to get plugged in for hunting material and content. Not just hunting, is it fishing, outdoors, anything. Like if it's outdoors related, go for it. And
Yep.
if you're having a hard time sleeping, or you're having a hard time getting quiet, check out the app Carbon Unwind. I know Jana, she narrates a couple stories that you can follow along with. And
I don't recommend mine though. I mean, I recommend listening to Johnny Mac or John Bear on the Carpenter Line. My Wisconsin voice will just keep you up all night. I only do you as a favor. My voice is not the most lulling, but there are some pretty great storytellers on Carbon Unwind. People should check it out. It's just like the Calm app, that there's sleep stories to lull you to sleep, meditations, and then there's some really cool nature sounds are coming.
yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Be blessed, everyone. Be of good cheer. Know that life happens for you. It doesn't happen to you. We are not a result of the circumstances in our lives. We get to create each moment however we want it and get to truly live. We are blessed to live the human experience. Until the next episode, everybody, thank you so much. Freedom on. And as always, stay soulful. If you enjoyed today's podcast, I'd love it if you could go ahead and give this a rating as well as subscribe. Also, you can check us out on Instagram under the Soulful Hunter Podcast. Make sure to tag us in pictures and posts and use the hashtag Soulful Hunter. To find out more about the Soulful Hunter Podcast, go to soulfulhunter.com and be sure to follow the podcast, as we are going to be bringing you a lot of great information, insight, and changing lives through primal adventure. I look forward to connecting with you on the next episode. Stay tuned and stay soulful.